Folks, thank you very much, and I apologize for the delay, which I'll explain to you in a second. But first of all, welcome to the September 15th, 2015 meeting of the Milton I have to start over. Once again, welcome to the September 15th, 2015 meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. The commission is appointed by the Board of Selectmen to implement the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act, which is a state act, and the Milton Town bylaw governing the wetlands as well. As a matter of formality, we always introduce ourselves. My name is John Kiernan.
Michael Blute.
Arthur Doyle.
Ingrid Beatty. Kathy Bowen.
And we have a tape recorder running so that anyone that speaks, we'd ask that they introduce themselves so we can keep a proper record. Everybody has an agenda, but as a courtesy, I think, to some of the people that may be coming in, I'd like to go out of order and go directly to number 5, the notice of intent at 693 through 711 Randolph Avenue. The applicant is asking for a continuance on that case. I think it has some interest in the public, and some people may be here in anticipation of that. But I'd ask the commissioners as to whether or not we can agree to extend that. It's at the applicant's request. There is one proviso, Jim. Sure. I just don't want people, sitting waiting and then have it continued at the end. But the one proviso is I do have a proposal from Niche Engineering for a hydrological study, and I'd like to give a copy of that to you so you can take it back to the applicant. Sure. Because it's something that I'd like to address at our next meeting, which is October. Kathy, do you have a date on that?
I believe it's the 14th. The 13th.
The 13th of October. Okay. All right. Could you just pass that down? Kathy, could you give that to Jim so that you could take it back to the applicant? And for the benefit of the public, what I'm talking about is a proposal from Niche Engineering. It's a contract with the town, but Jim, the proposal is going to be that under Chapter 44, Section 53G, we would ask the applicant to pay for that. Yep. And I know they want an opportunity to respond, to look at the scope and the cost and what. Okay. All right? But just to get that process started. Having said that, is there any objection to continuing this at the request of the applicant?
No.
That's done. And Kathy, if you could keep an eye out, if you see people coming in anticipation of this, we should tell them that it has been continued. And the next one that is at least a portion of the next one, which is Order of Conditions Extension, Lot 1, Gun Hill Street. That's a continued hearing, and at least a portion of that is going to be continued as well. There are two parts to that application, and that is that I think that the applicant expected that they would be part of the automatic extension. The legislature passed, actually they passed it twice, in 2010 and then again in 2012, to extend the permits, which there's a permit already in existence for lot number 1, and it's good for 3 years, and that 3 years is going to be up in November. The automatic extension applies to all permits, I think, through August of 2012. And I think we issued this permit in October of 2012. Right. Or maybe November of 2012. So this particular permit does not fall within the automatic extension. But nevertheless, we now revert back to the traditional approach, which is to ask the Conservation Commission for an extension. We've all had we've been there several times, actually, in the last 4 or 5 months. And I see no reason not to extend this. Right. But having said that, there is going to be an application which we just received tonight. It's not on the agenda for a minor modification, or it's purportedly a minor modification. But actually it's to move the house further away from the wetlands rather than closer, which I think one of the other houses did the same thing. Yeah. That we cannot address because it's not on the agenda. So that part would be continued until the next meeting.
There's an ongoing discussion about the invasive growth due to the removal of the trees and the watering of the lawn.
Correct.
And that is an issue that came up on lot number 3 that may carry over into the ability to extend lot number 1.
That's correct. And that discussion, actually Judith, I think, was probably the the foremost proponent of addressing that issue.
Right.
And that can be part of the request for a change in the order of conditions. If it's a minor modification, then we can simply make it a minor modification and change the order of conditions, and that will be an issue to be addressed at the meeting. At the same time they're
For
moving
sure.
the house, we can address the issue of the invasives.
So do you want to table the whole discussion about continued hearing until that time?
Well, there are two separate issues. It actually doesn't matter to me,
Okay.
but I don't think the extension is particularly controversial. I think the invasives maybe. So we want to make sure we retain jurisdiction over the invasive aspect. If you'd like to put them together. doesn't matter
I
to me.
propose that we keep them together,
Okay,
because,
Okay.
yeah.
Arthur?
You can go either way. Michael, what's the advantage of doing that?
Well, the point that Judith brought up was that
I remember that, but what's the advantage of combining them?
the wrong word, the leverage that we have relative to the invasives pertains directly to the extension of the permit. If we agree to extend the permit, then the discussion of the invasives could be withdrawn. So why don't we just keep them together and we can have it all, we can do it all in a shot. And we'll just do it when Judith's here, hopefully that'll be next month.
That, I would agree with you, but for the fact that they're asking for a change in
Right.
the order of conditions anyway. Because they want to move the house, and they're actually reducing the amount of space that's jurisdictional.
Okay.
So to the extent that they're, I know you're trying to leverage, no, you're being very, you
I'm
know,
being
candid.
blunt, yeah.
Right, right.
Right, and that's purely the only reason, the only thing I see.
Okay. Ingrid?
So if they change the area of land that's affected, it will affect what the deal is with the invasives.
Well, we don't have a deal with the invasives. That's the point that Judith brought up, was that on lot number 3, the invasives with the removal of the trees and the watering of the lawns,
Got more
gave-
light.
got more light,
They took off.
they took off.
Yeah.
So let's, two things. One is, let's make sure that we try to solve that problem on lot number 1.
Mhm.
And because it's up in front of us for an extension on the permit, that's an opportunity to have that discussion. We don't know where the discussion is going. And my feeling was, well, if we agree to the extension, then you basically lost your leverage, barring attaching it to the change to the order of conditions.
Right, that's what I had envisioned, but I suppose you're right, they could always withdraw their
Right.
proposal to change the position of the house.
Right.
That's certainly possible. Jim, do you want to weigh in on this? 'Cause
One thing,
Jim, could you identify yourself for the record, please? And you'll have to use the mic while you're there.
Jim Burke, Sell Burke and Associates here representing Tom Cochran for Lot 1 Gun Hill. My only thought on this is that you have basically a lot that's cleared to limited work, and that the extension of the order conditions will allow us to continue to actually work the lot and proceed towards a single-family house being built on there. Whether or not the invasives are discussed or,
Resolved, or
resolved,
approached, yeah.
exactly. So I'm thinking, let's get the order of conditions straightened out, and then we can come in with the amended order of conditions next time and then we can talk about the invasives attached to that.
If you're comfortable with that, yeah, sure.
Yeah, my only concern is that, as you said, that we maintain jurisdiction.
Oh,
That's
the
the only
jurisdictions, yeah,
Yeah.
you have that.
Right, we don't lose that.
Then I have no preference.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, sorry,
I could go either way.
Okay.
It doesn't matter to me, but to the extent that they're separate issues, as long as we are able to address the
The invasives.
invasives.
Right.
And I
That's
think, and
purely
Jim,
the
you
point.
understand
I
that.
understand. I don't think here I am, albeit I am reducing the footprint and pulling it back away from the wetlands, it's still a change. And that kind of opens up the option of discussing the invasives that were identified in the last site walk.
So you're not going to withdraw the request to change the footprint? are
That would
you?
be dirty pool, wouldn't it?
Well, some,
No, I
Mike would think so.
No, I have to show my face up here about once a month, so, no, we're not,
No.
that's not what I'm No Machiavellian thing going on there.
Well, upon the goodwill that we have with you, then
Sure.
are you comfortable with that?
Yeah,
I am.
I'm just,
All right.
It's fine.
I agree.
So, is there a motion to extend the permit for 1 year?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Any members of the public, abutters, want to make a comment? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, so you've got a 1 year extension on that, and we'll see you next meeting on the proposed
October
modification.
13th.
13th, yes, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right, and folks, I did that, I took 2 out of order because not only will it benefit the public, but it'll benefit Jim Burke, so he doesn't have to wait around. So now we go back to number 1, and that's abbreviated notice of intent at 0 Central Avenue. That's the town of Milton, and they have asked in writing for a continuance of that. That's the Hendry's plant, and that's that portion that Milton is interested in is the demolition. We have already issued the demolition permit to the developer, and that was done last April. So they've asked for continuance. That also will be heard on October 13th. Number 2 on the agenda is request for certificate of compliance, Truman Parkway.
Ron, before we go on,
Yes.
this is, what number
continuous.
continuance? We've lost count,
For
right?
0.
There's been so many.
On the town?
Yeah.
I don't know, a lot. I think they've been
Right.
continuing it since November.
So, to what extent do we want to say this goes on ad infinitum? I think we as a commission might consider saying, you know, you've got this window, and if it's not resolved within that window, more continuances. It's not in the
But-
interest
but-
of the town for this to go on forever.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly with that.
And how
I
do
think
we
the
help?
town is looking for a global resolution, and
Agreed.
the applicant already has the permit. We all believe that it's a public safety hazard, and the building should come down.
Agreed.
I think we've made that pretty
Yep.
plain since
We're all
last,
together on
a
that.
year ago.
Yeah, but since the applicant, the developer has the approval to proceed, I don't understand why the town can't pull the trigger.
I think the problem is that if you take part of the building down, then the other part's going to fall down.
That
Because
we-
they have a
right.
wall there that's a weight-bearing wall between the two.
Yeah.
Actually, there are 3 parcels.
But we're
that
not
town
letting, the
controls
town's
too.
not letting the contractor or
Proceed.
the owner tear down.
No, the contractor can tear it down. The problem for the town is, they need to go in through the same direction. They had to come in from the west.
But there's it said there's a quote agreement.
Yeah, there
for
was an
safety
agreement.
purposes that they'd come down together.
Yes, that's
Right.
correct.
So,
It makes both public safety sense and it
Right.
makes financial
so
sense.
what, what specifically is the holdup on the town side at the present time, do you know?
Do I know?
Yeah. you-
Yeah.
So can you share it?
Well, I think the interest in having a global settlement is what's driving this. And there are 2 things going on at once. One is the demolition part
Right.
that we have done our best to resolve. The other one is the development component.
Right.
And a portion of the development component has been appealed to DEP because of our denial of,
So we're waiting.
one plan.
Town wants to wait for the DEP results?
I don't know that they can wait that long because the DEP
Right.
goes
Could
at
take
its
a long
own
time.
pace.
Right.
I believe that there is joint pressure to request that the DEP expedite that process. But what that translates into in terms of time delay, I don't know. And DEP won't delay, but then again, they've got
A ton of work,
a ton of
limited
work.
staff.
Right, they do.
And that's under the belief that the developer's gonna come to, that's under the belief that the developer's gonna cover the cost of the demolition of the town's portion.
There was a proposal under which that was part of the
The agreement,
consideration,
yeah.
but there is consideration going both ways.
I'll vote for this continuation without any, I mean, you don't have to vote on favor, but I don't know about how much further, as one member of
No,
the.
and I think that's a reasonable position, and I think you articulated it before. I think the whole town is concerned that this
It is.
process
There are a
move
lot of
along.
people, good citizens out there that
Right.
are very concerned.
So is the town able to fund the portion of the demolition, and then at that point, it becomes a numbers game in terms of whether or not the developer reimburses the town? Because then the building's down. Our goal is to get the building down. And we gave the permission for the developer to take it down, and the town is dragging their feet. So can the town?
Well, I'm not sure the
pull
town's dragging their feet, because the town has been very aggressive in trying to get a global resolution. And the global resolution that I'm referring to is both the demolition and the construction
Right.
of an appropriate project.
Right.
And they've been kind of teetering close. And the reason I'm being, if you think I'm being coy, is
No.
because under the public meeting law, a lot of the discussions having to do with real estate conveyances
Yeah.
is for executive session. And it is confidential. And the negotiations have remained confidential. And that's really a matter that's being driven by the selectmen.
Yeah, but if the town decides, if the town recognizes or agrees that the building should come down, funds the building coming down, lets the demolition go ahead, and that just moves the cost of that work to the discussion rather than stalling the demolition.
That's exactly what's happened. That the cost of the demolition is being, it's like a ping pong ball going back and forth between the town and the applicant as to who's going to pick it up. But there are other aspects of the consideration.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And that's what's, you know, within the discretion of the selectmen as to what's being given in return for the applicant picking up the cost of the demolition.
I just want them to take the building down.
Same.
Right, so do we. So do I.
And we have agreed in previous meetings to a two-step process.
Correct. And the applicant did as well.
Right.
And the town did.
As far as I'm concerned, that's it. And anybody who's not letting us get that done is now in the way.
That's a fair statement. I think that's right.
Okay?
I think that's right. And you're right, Arthur, because I think some of the townspeople don't understand what the holdup is. They see the
Sure.
building there, and they say, why isn't it down? And we look at the building and say, why isn't it down?
Right.
Because we're ready, willing, and able to issue the permit to the town to demolish it.
Yep.
Right, and we've issued the permission to the developer to do it, and the town hasn't come forward to request, to finalize their application.
Well, we have their application. We have the town's application, correct?
We do.
So,
Well, one of the problems, though, is that the way the demolition contract was bid for a particular price, the contractor had to come in from a particular direction. And the particular direction is under the
Right.
discretion and control of the applicant. So if the town and the applicant can come to an agreement, and I don't see why they can't, because the whole building should be taken down at the same time. There are two ways to do that. One way was to come in over what I call the open area where the tree used to be.
Right.
The problem with coming in with heavy equipment there, the cranes, there are tanks underneath there, and the weight of the cranes could crush the tanks, depending what's in there. And then there's going to be litigation over who caused the tanks to collapse. The other way is to come in from the west, and that is to just take the whole demolition heading towards Central Avenue.
Right.
That's the best plan.
Yes.
But to do that, there has to be an agreement from the applicant to let the town, demolish the building, and the issue is who's going to pay for it.
Okay, but the applicant, the developer, agreed that was as far as they're concerned, that was a viable strategy. They were going to allow the town. They're not restricting the town in terms of getting that access. So the developer isn't stalling, it doesn't appear to be stalling the project.
I'd like to clear this off our agenda. I think the debate that's going on is a debate that's beyond the Conservation Commission. And after this continuance, I would recommend that we issue our approval for the town and let them work out all the details thereafter and not have it on our backs.
Yeah, but we can't approve it until they've resolved it, they've presented a plan.
We can do an order of condition. We can state it's approved with these conditions.
Okay,
This
so
is
we end
how
up
you
writing
do
the
it.
plan for them.
If they're not doing it,
We end up writing their
Yeah.
plan for,
yeah.
and actually, on that note, we could, okay,
Mhm.
yeah. So we end up writing the plan for them and saying, go, this is what you're gonna do. You got approval.
Yeah, well, there may be other ways to do it as well. It could be an enforcement order. because if it appears to be, not from the public if it is a public safety hazard, then the town should do something anyway.
Right.
But if it would be an environmental risk, that if the building collapsed and, you know, if there are any deleterious contents of the building and they ended up in the air, you know, into the
Or the
river,
river,
close to
right.
the river, then that might be grounds to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm just trying to be creative, but I think there's a lot of people talking in different directions.
Yeah.
I think there's some good faith there. I think there is a resolution. So I agree with everybody that we should encourage the parties to get together and get the building down.
Can we convey that message too?
Yes.
That our fuse is very short?
We'll do that.
Thank you, John.
Is there a calendar timeline by which, in this calendar year, it needs to be done? I mean, does weather affect this?
I don't think so. I think the MBTA is getting frustrated too, because they don't know when the shutdown is coming. And they need to know, and as I understand the construction.
It stands to reason before winter, I mean, they've got to do it before, say, like December or something, right?
Not necessarily.
No?
I mean, they want to use water to reduce the dust.
Dust.
Right,
So
they
you don't
wanna-
want to
they
be,
wanna freeze
you don't
it.
want to be spraying water in the freezing weather.
Right.
But other than that, I don't believe that there's any
It
restrictions.
doesn't matter if it's,
No.
Well, there's
There-
always the unexpected, and if there's something that interrupts the passage of the trolley, people have to get off. That's not fun in February.
True.
Right, and there is a cost factor in that too, because there has to be a diversionary
that's right,
mechanism to get
Right.
people from, I guess, Milton,
They've got a bus
the
to
Milton
someplace
station to Mattapan.
right.
Yep.
Right.
And that's a fairly pricey issue, but I think that's probably on the table as well. But you're right, I mean, the public should know that we're not part and parcel of the negotiating going on. But we have a role in it, certainly. But we will do our best to encourage all the parties to get together and get this done.
Thanks. That'd be great.
Anything else? Well, with that, we can agree upon the continuance for the town, at the request of the town.
Yes.
Yes.
And next on the agenda is number 2, request for certificate of compliance, Truman Parkway, Neponset River Esplanade. Anybody from DCR? Somebody was coming, right?
They gave us me the package. I assume they would be here.
Well, you know, while it's on the agenda, why don't we talk about whether or not this requires a site plan? Because one of the issues that came up, they had some minor adjustments of the trail, and it impacted on the trees as to which
Couple
trees were
trees.
taken.
There weren't a lot that I could see in the plan that were impacted upon.
Anybody think there's a sidewalk is appropriate?
I'm actually of the opinion that we should do a sidewalk, but given the length of it, I actually think that we should do it separately and discuss it either at the next meeting or at another sidewalk.
We could do a bicycle walk.
Yeah, we could, I think the scope of the thing is too big to realistically cover it. And it may be independent, everyone doing an independent review and then bringing it up at the next meeting or at the next sidewalk, or whatever. Unless there's, as you say, there's one specific location that you have in mind.
No, I don't, and that's what I thought we could narrow down tonight if DCR were here. So Kathy, you're surprised that they're not here, correct?
I am surprised.
Because they're usually pretty good. I know
They are.
Kathy Garnett was originally a driving force, and she's retired now, I think.
Correct.
But
But I
can you
thought
give,
Dana, I can call them tomorrow. I hate to pull the sidewalk and then they can't make it.
correct. So why don't we put
Well,
it
that's what
on
I'm saying,
for
let's do
October
it.
13th, and then make sure they're here, and then we can plan a site walk after that.
Can we agree to do independent sidewalks on our own? Because that way,
Sure, yeah.
okay. Because that way we can go to the meeting with an idea of what we want to, if there are any things that we want to look at. Because there's no way to, it's a long, it looks fantastic though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very
Sure.
nice.
I think, at least on one of the maps that I read, 50% of the trees are on the city of Boston side,
Mhm.
Yeah.
not on our side, so it doesn't make that a major, major issue.
Okay.
You know, we do have some portion of $15,000 from the MBTA that they owe us in trees and labor. And it actually was a result of the tree cutting along the the right-of-way.
Yep.
If we could ever convince the MBTA to honor their consent agreement and pay us that money, or whatever portion, we have to share some of it with the city of Boston.
Right.
But the bulk of it is in Milton. If we did see some areas that needed trees, the MBTA would be a good source for funding, and actually providing man-hours to plant the trees. That may be wishful thinking.
Yeah, what's the likelihood of that?
Well, in the next deficiency budget.
We could speak to Walter and Brian and to other people as well.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, but are we in agreement that we'll, Kathy, you'll call DCR tomorrow, we'll put it on for the 13th. In the meantime, we'll do our own individual inspection, and then make a decision at that time as to whether or not a full site walk public meeting is appropriate.
Yeah, we might be able to resolve it verbally just then, right?
Absolutely. Okay. So we'll continue that until 10:13. Next on the agenda is notice of intent, 600 Canton Avenue. That's Winter Valley. Yep, good evening. Welcome.
Together sometime other than Saturday or Sunday, I'd be happy to
Yeah.
do it for you.
Yeah,
This evening.
we grab two
Morning,
bites and go. Yeah.
I think you do, actually. You're a rock star again with the mic.
I know, I feel like a celebrity. Good evening, my name is Matt Weber. I'm an engineer with Beals Associates. We're working with Winter Valley Residences on their facility here in Milton. Basically, just to recap, they're planning a repaving project across the site. It's going to be a phased project. It's looking like this year we'll probably get 2 of the 5 phases done, hopefully. And then a small portion of that work will be within the 100-foot buffer zone to the wetland. So, if you can all see, this is the area in question here, sort of on the left as you come up the driveway. I'll flip through to the detailed plans.
Can I interrupt you and ask you a question? Did anybody reset those boundaries? Because we were not convinced that they were accurate.
Yep, so we rewalked the wetland line. I think one of your issues was correct, was that the plan didn't quite accurately show the flags that were in the field. So this plan has been updated to show the flags that are out there accurately. If you guys have a difference of opinion on the wetland flags.
We did.
Right, so we'd certainly be open to another site walk. I think either way, if the wetland line was moved, or I know either way, we still wouldn't be within the 25-foot buffer. And we've also shown the DEP wetland line on there. And even using that more restrictive line than what we had showed, we're still, well outside that 25-foot.
Right,
So-
and that's an issue. I think the consensus was, for those that were in attendance at the site walk, was that the flags were, A, not accurately represented on the plan, and B, weren't accurately placed for the wetlands. I mean, there was some very significant plant life that was, it seemed to be on an upland, that, wetland plants, and they were on the upland side of the line. So I would not want to approve the wetland line. But I agree with you, though, that I think we may be quibbling over, 15 feet here or there, but it's not going to affect the non-disturbance zone. I don't think we're within 25 feet.
Right.
And that is, if you go back to your plunge pool area, which I think is a good idea, by the way, but if you could point that out.
So that's right here. So the wetland line is down here, and then you've got the 100-foot buffer, and then here's the plunge pool.
What's the distance as it's depicted there? If you've got a scale, you can just ballpark it if it's not marked. But are you within 50 feet or 75 feet or 26 feet?
This is probably approximately 75 feet
away from...
away from the wetland line.
Okay. Okay.
I can say for a fact that everything is beyond the 50-foot buffer.
Okay. That was my impression. And I don't know if... because I did not like
I didn't like the
either
old
the
line.
depiction on the plan or the line itself.
Well, in reading this September 2 document, on July 28, 2015, a representative from our office performed a wetland delineation of the property. Upon determining that the field delineation was very similar to the Mass DEP delineation, DEP, the Mass DEP delineation was held as the primary boundary.
Oh, that's a flyover. We don't accept the
Exactly,
DEP
exactly.
lines, ever.
Right.
I don't think we ever have.
No.
That's
So
a
that- so that
ballpark,
was-
that's one of those aerial photographic flights, and they just kind of ballpark where they think the wetlands are.
Yep, and so that was more restrictive than the line that we found. So we're taking the
Right,
line.
but we didn't like your line.
And, you know, we can go out and discuss it, that's fine. It's just,
But I thought,
I didn't-
at the last minute, we came to an agreement that there would be a reflagging of that area.
we walked the line again and agreed on our original line.
That's
You
where
agreed
we
with yourself,
disagree.
okay.
So you
I guess-
remapped it on the drawing, but didn't make any changes in the field?
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah. So
That's what I thought I read.
Right.
it's just hard for us to, based on knowledge that you guys disagree with the line, to just go and change it based on that opinion. We have to go on what we're seeing, I guess, which is soils, hydrology, and plants. So,
Well, when you have skunk cabbage plants outside your flags, the line's wrong. That needs to be corrected. And
Yeah, it was pretty clear to us. I mean, we don't pretend to be botanists or wetland scientists, but we've been doing it for a few decades.
yeah.
And that one was off, we thought. And the way to do it is to have a site walk at the same time. But I was hoping we could see if we could get by this. We'll never approve the line as it's shown. At least I won't, because I thought it was just flat out wrong. But I don't know that we need to do it, because if we don't certify the line, I don't think we should certify that line because of what I consider to be an error. But nevertheless, it's far enough away from what looks like a good plan, and that is to put in that plunge pool and to correct the hill there and prevent some of the erosion that's taking place there. And I think by fixing it, that is fixing the parking area, you could probably retain some of the petroleum products that come out of the cars. So I see it as a good plan.
So you're saying don't worry about the line because we're not close enough to be an issue?
It's something that we ought to put on the table and think about.
Okay.
Is it a cost issue? Or is it a construction schedule issue?
For what particular?
Well, typically what we do is when we do a site visit, and we had a site visit here, there's a wetland scientist there. There we can say, give me a soil sample here, or give me one there. What do you think about this vegetation? What do you think about that vegetation? Is that upland? Is it fact wet? Is it fact up? So we have an open discussion with the wetland scientist.
Yeah,
We're not trying to drive your cost up, but that's our standard practice. So we usually move lines at the site walk.
sure.
And we have a discussion, and the wetland scientist will say, no, it should be here, and we say it should be at the other end of the rise or the change in elevation.
I think, John, if I remember correctly, at least from my perspective, we may have a middle ground, because most of the lines that I found at fault were on the extremes. They weren't toward the cliff.
Mhm.
They were to the right and to the left. And that's outside
The project.
the right. So if that's the case,
So you're essentially agreeing with my, at least it's a
Yes.
thought, I'm not taking a hard position on it, but
supporting it.
I think we could not approve the line and still be confident that they're not within 25 feet.
That's what I'm saying.
And because it's a good project, even if it enters into our jurisdictional area,
Right.
there is a net benefit. Although you really do have to clean it up. That's the dirtiest wetland site I've ever seen.
Well, that was another point I wanted to bring up. They've gone out and cleaned trash from the wetland and cleaned the brush out. So that's been done.
Good, that's good. That's good news. I don't know, Mike, what do you think
No,
about that approach?
I think it's exactly right. We can proceed without approving the wetland line, we're saying we're beyond, significantly beyond the 25-foot. I don't see a reason.
Okay.
And then we can just talk about the details of what's being proposed.
Okay. Ingrid, what do you think about that?
Sounds to me.
Okay. Are there other, give us some other things, because I remember
The pipe.
one of the problems they had was the pipe.
Yeah.
We didn't know where the
Yep.
discharge
So
was coming from.
we identified the pipe. It is a roof drain. So what we came up with was basically just cut off the drain from where it's currently exiting down the hill, and we'll direct it right into this plunge pool. So that'll reduce the future risk of any more scour coming out of that pipe.
Okay.
And we thought that was a pretty good solution.
All right. Now, there was some, and I can't tell here whether or not it's been changed, but
The drain
the drain was in the wrong place.
to,
Is
The
it,
larger plan,
is it this one?
So maybe these drains here.
right.
So these
right.
drains, they connect to the city system. So they're going back.
This drain right here
Yeah.
is actually in a parking space. It looks like it's beyond the last parking space. I parked my car on top of it, so
Yeah.
I'm positive that it's in a parking space. Because I get out and I don't think I took a
And-
picture. Somebody
and
may have
it's-
taken a picture.
It's also in the middle of the slope, so it only gets the water that falls on it.
Yeah.
It's not against the curb, it's in the middle of the slope, off the curb. It's really catching nothing.
So I guess,
that's inaccurate.
so either way, these
See this?
These drain back to the
Up here.
city system,
Mm-hmm.
so they're
It
not,
actually came up like this.
They're going the other way?
kind of draw an imaginary line here.
Yep.
Water that's hitting the surface here is coming down into our system.
Right.
Any water hitting up here, whether it goes into that catch basin there or there, it's being directed through underground piping back to the city system in the street. So I guess I'm just not making the connection on the importance of that catch basin.
Well, number one, the plan is wrong, because it is in a parking space.
Correct.
Okay.
And number two, it seems like, at least to my untutored eye, is that the water was shedding
This is.
this way. It missing that, but it was
right
going
off
this
that
way.
corner.
If it were to
Straight
catch
up.
it, that may
Oh,
drain
See
this
these
way,
parking spaces.
Yeah.
but the water is sheet
It's
flowing
right
this
there,
way,
the parking space.
towards the,
This is really.
the
Right.
decrease in slope here. It seems to be going this way, because that's a downward slope there, going
Right.
down to this parking area.
Yeah.
That one's not
So A, I don't know what it's doing, and B,
So actually, everything that's.
if you tell me it's going in the other direction, that's great, but I don't know what it's
You'll
carrying,
miss that.
because the water from that
Perpendicular to the flow.
area is going down the
It's gonna
hill
hit here
towards the
and go
lower
Yeah.
parking lot
Yeah.
where you're repaving.
Yeah. So some of this water will come down this way. So whatever goes down there now is going to go down there after we add this curb, and we'll get directed to the plunge pool. And that's shown in our
By
stormwater
the
counts.
berm.
Right,
The curb.
Correct.
the curb.
Okay. What's the, can you tell us, and actually for the benefit of the public, what's the plunge pool do in terms of screening out any contaminants from the parking area? How does it work?
So basically, it'll take runoff from this entire area. It's about 6-inch minus stone. So water during the bigger storms, well, during any storm, is going to enter the plunge pool. And then instead of just ripping down that slope and causing erosion, it'll allow it to slowly dissipate out. You will get some collection of particulates in there, sediments. So it will need to be cleaned out over time, which we have in our operation and maintenance plan. And we also ran stormwater calculations on that, showing that water, after it's running into this plunge pool, the pre versus post is a de minimis change. It's less than a tenth of a cubic foot per second. Which we usually,
Even with the 4 additional parking lots?
correct, yeah. So we usually look at increases on that scale as below the accuracy of the design software. So in a nutshell, that's how it works. So it'll just slowly dissipate the water rather than,
And what does it do, if anything, with respect to, I don't know what you use, salt, some kind of chloride to melt the snow? And where do you put the snow from the parking lot when you plow it?
I think currently some probably gets stored back here, but in the future, none will be allowed to be stored in this area because it has to be clear for the collection of water. So,
But does that mean it's going over the side? Because you're dumping it over the hill, you're dumping all that stuff. So that's, where is it? I'm sorry, could you introduce yourself?
I'm Sharon Williams, manager at Winter Valley. The snow is along the left side as you drive into the parking lot. They put snow there.
Can you show us so that we can see what you're talking about? And you might need the microphone too. Matt, if you could give it to her for a moment. Thank you.
The snow is here. We don't put the snow here.
Okay.
The snow is here, or it's off, up in the back of the building, up in the back of the property, up by building 4,
Okay.
and some of it goes over to building 2.
Okay. Because you know where we would be concerned.
It doesn't
And that
go
would be at
here.
the top of the slope, right there.
Our dumpsters are here, and we keep our trucks here, so they don't keep snow there. That's cleared out.
Can I ask you a question? It was an extraordinarily dirty wetland, and my assumption is, and you can correct me, is that was occurring because of the placement of the dumpster.
That was my original thought. That was the reason for some of it. But we also found tires down there. People come along and throw their trash. I've seen it from across the street. They throw their leaves into the area as you pull into the property. And I think people just throw their trash. They found an extraordinary amount of trash down there.
These are your tenants.
No, not our tenants.
This is people pulling in and dumping.
People pull in and just dump. And our tenants, my tenants wouldn't throw 2 tires down there. They found tires, they found a lot of trash. Some of it was from the movement of the dumpsters, but when we finish
So what
this.
control will be exercised to make that different tomorrow from today?
Excuse me?
What controls will we put into place to make that different tomorrow from what it is today?
We're thinking about putting in an enclosure
Okay.
For the dumpster?
for the dumpsters, and so that the animals can't get at it. Some of the animals also go into the dumpsters. We have a lot of animals up there. So the animals will go in and throw it over, take a bag out and just rip it. And we'd like to put in an enclosure and possibly a camera. We'll see what that is, see if that makes
Can we
any
make those
sense for
orders?
us.
Yeah, I think so.
Weren't the dumpsters going to be relocated as part of
Yes,
this
the
proposed
dumpsters
plan?
will
So they're
be
not
put-
going to be on that high side?
They won't be here, they'll be, where am
They
I?
were up with this side of the
Where's the
plunge
building?
pool,
Oh, okay.
right
Yeah,
there.
so they're tucked in
And that
there.
worries me.
Okay.
They-
The dumpsters will go back, and,
No, you're
no,
not going to
That's
put them in the
where-
parking spaces.
they're not gonna go there. This is where they usually are, right in here.
Because when we went up, they were at the top of the hill.
Because this is all corroded, it's
Correct.
falling in. And one day, the trash truck came and it started to collapse. It started to sink into the ground. So we had to move them so they could get at them. So they are here, and they will go back over here where they have always been.
Okay. And with an enclosure? See, I don't know the building well enough, but there's an access there, on the lower side
Yes,
to the
the
building?
maintenance shop is down there.
So could you actually put an enclosure around the dumpster
We believe we could.
and
We'll have
not?
to look into that once we get,
All right, well,
everything back
we'd like
in
to
place.
condition as much as we could to protect the wetlands, because and you agree, it was pretty bad.
it was bad.
So we'd like to make that as part of the order, but we don't want to add something that you can't do, and it should be feasible.
We will look into it as soon as everything is back in place. We would like to do that. Would save us too from picking up trash.
Right, I'm just trying to figure out how we issue an
Man-hours.
order to include some kind of a condition if we don't know what the condition is. I mean, I'd like to say something, we could make it broad enough that the dumpsters will be enclosed.
Right. That's simple, doesn't it? I don't think it has to be any more complicated than that, does it?
I don't think so. But we need to know essentially where they're going. So we'd say, and I'm asking you for the language, if we were to say that the dumpsters should be placed adjacent to the back of the building or adjacent to the building, because one of the concerns I have is that if they get too close to this plunge pool,
Right.
it's counterproductive.
Correct.
And I know there's a hill here, so, and I don't want to back it up so much that it's
No, we won't.
inhibiting your access. Is there space
I
in
believe
here?
there's enough space in here for the dumpsters.
So what would you call that? This is,
That's the shop.
so it would
It's
be
building
adjacent to the
one
shop?
Adjacent to the shop.
All right. Because I assume that, are the trucks coming in here or backing up to it?
They back up to it.
But if you put the dumpster there, that might inhibit that. I don't want to be impractical.
They used to be right here.
Side by side.
So, side by side. And they used to just back up. And I don't think it's going to interfere, do you? With,
I guess I just have to see how many and what size trucks they're bringing down in here. But if they were here before, there's no reason they wouldn't be able to go back here. And that's a good spot for them because it's far away from the slope and far away from the plunge pool. So,
So what do we call this? This is the north, this way, so this is the west side of the building, sort of?
yes, I believe it is.
So that's the western
Right,
side
the
of the
west
building.
side of building
How
number
many
one.
dumpsters are supposed to live in that space, or supposed to?
Two.
Two.
2, 6. What do you call
And they
them?
get exchanged, or do they just get emptied?
They get empty.
They don't get exchanged, so they stay stationary.
Okay, so we can work on, we'll make it generic enough so that it gives you a little bit of flexibility in terms of planning.
Okay.
But we really would like to have those enclosed to prevent what happened before. All right?
Can you talk a little bit about the slope, about modifications to the slope, both for the plunge pool as well as for stabilizing the nose of the parking spaces along that side? Because we know that it's currently eroded, so you're going to be coming back in with something to stabilize it. Are you doing a retaining wall along that, or is the intent to come in and, oh, sorry. Is the intent to come in and regrade it? I mean, that's, well, how are you gonna stabilize the slope, both for the plunge pool and for the parking? My concern about the plunge pool is if you don't put something on the backside of it, it's basically just gonna be a flow through the gravel down the slope, where if you put something, if we pack the backside, then you actually are gonna get it to it's gonna flow into the ground rather than just become surface runoff
Yeah.
downhill.
So with the plunge pool, this will actually be excavated out almost 4 feet here.
Okay.
So you'll have kind of coming off the pavement, you'll come down 4 feet. So the back side of this is kind of like the berm that you're talking about.
What's the difference in grade there? Like
So
between the top of that berm and the bottom of the plunge pool?
4 feet.
On the berm on the backside is it's a 4-foot berm?
From this elevation here to
Yep.
the bottom is 4 feet.
Oh, okay.
And then keep going. Is it also 4 feet to the
To the parking lot?
parking lot?
So it'll be flush at the parking lot. So you'll come off flush, then come down to the bottom, and then come back up to basically to existing. We're not going to have a huge berm on the back.
You said it's flush. What is the drop from the flush to the bottom of the plunge, to the bottom of the excavation for the plunge pool?
The drop from here
Yep,
to here
yep.
is 4 feet.
And it's 4 feet on the other side as well.
Right.
So in order to get that to happen, there's a lot of buildup, because that, right now, that's a pretty good grade downhill towards the wetland. In order to get a 4-foot berm on the backside, you're packing that. You're either lowering the whole parking lot, or you're packing the backside of that plunge pool.
So this is meeting existing. So here it's flush. So you're not building a berm per se. You're more just removing this material to make a 4-foot deep hole.
Okay. if this is the slope, this is the parking lot up here.
Right.
This is the wetland down here, and it currently does something like that, so there's a little slope and it gets steeper down here. If you say you're 4 feet to the bottom here, and you're 4 feet up there, you just brought this up, I would say at least 2 feet on this side. So in order for this to be 4 feet deep from the edge from the edge near the berm near the wetland, the other side's got to be down like 6 feet. It would have to
I
be
think
dead
the
level.
punch pool may be further back towards the parking lot than we.
Oh, is that
envision.
currently parking spaces? No, there was
Because
an
I
area
agree,
of
with
lawn.
that's my impression. What you just described, that was my impression from being there. But what are the elevations here, and what's the elevation there?
So we have a top elevation of 97.25, and then we're coming down to 96. So you've got,
And that's what, 90?
That's a foot and a
you've
half.
got about a foot and a half, foot and a quarter,
Okay, so
foot
it's
and a half.
4.5 on one and a foot and a half on the other.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You still need to put some kind of a retaining, I know you're talking about packing the backside of it.
Well, I don't want to, my concern was that they were going to regrade the downhill side in order to give them enough of a berm height. And what he's saying now is that they're not doing that. They're actually excavating from what they have. They're not getting 4 feet on the downhill side. They're only getting a foot and a half or something less. And there's a 4-foot drop on the uphill side.
Is that enough?
It has to do with your calculations. I'm just worried about if the downhill side is too low, then the gravel just becomes a flow-through. It doesn't, there's no retention there, and then we're going to continue to get washout because it'll be sheet flow out the back of that. It basically becomes riprap and less of a punch pool,
Right.
and that's what we don't want.
And so just these elevations, you're kind of seeing the top of this stone too. So you'll
Yep.
also get, those elevations basically represent this line.
Yep.
So you'll get some retention down within the stone. So if I were to show these elevations as the bottom of the stone, you'd see even more
Yeah.
volume.
So could you, if our concern is wash through, could you line the downhill side of the plunge pool with something to minimize flow through, forcing it into the ground? And have you done a perk test on the ground yet to know whether or not we're going to get any absorption?
We're not going to get much absorption. We've looked at the NRCS plans for the site,
Yep.
and they're showing a hydrologic soil type D.
Yep.
So there's going to be very little absorption down there. It's more of just trying to slow that water as it's coming through.
Okay.
So it is a riprap,
So it is going to be riprap.
And it's stated as such on the plan.
as a riprap. Right, the plan also talks about a plunge pool.
plunge
At least the plan talks, the narrative talks about a plunge pool.
Right, we're calling it a riprap plunge pool. Very descriptive.
Yes. Kind of ambiguous.
Yeah.
So,
That's not going to do much for us in terms of runoff from the
Or washout.
parking area.
Right.
Or washout.
it'll slow it down, but it's going to spread it out, and we're still going to get washout downhill. So do you extend that further, do you extend the riprap further down the slope? In order to, or do you plant it? Do you plant the slope with something that's gonna, is there another, understanding that we're not gonna get a lot of absorption, most of it's gonna be flow, can we plant the slope? What can you do, the concern is we wanna minimize erosion of the slope. If it's just riprap and it stops, the downhill side of that's gonna get eroded. Can we plant it with a grass, or is there another strategy for minimizing erosion? Downhill of the riprap.
So we looked at the velocities coming off there. I don't believe there'll be
There's not enough,
erosion coming out of there.
there's not enough flow.
Right.
Okay.
But there's no absorption either for the contaminants, because we started this discussion with, how are you going to pick up the contaminants and the petroleum products from the cars, washing into the wetlands. And I thought the absorption component was going to take care of that. Now it looks like a flow-through.
But maybe the better solution is not to do a riprap, but actually do something that will absorb and filter. Maybe the better.
No, I agree, but
Because you
if
need
the
to do
soils
both.
don't, but the soils aren't going to work.
Right, the soils, maybe you need to do both.
That's what I'm thinking, because you need to slow it down in order for it to get
Yeah,
to where it can absorb
right,
anything.
right.
So you've also got a foot-thick sand layer beneath that stone. So we're getting some absorption down through that. And remember, this area, we're looking about over 20 feet wide,
How much
about
volume?
10 feet deep.
How much volume are we talking about in a normal storm? I mean, what's a normal storm? But how much volume of water are we talking about?
That'll be directed into here.
And that
Draining quite a bit of surface area, right?
non-woven gesso. Yep. Oh, okay. That's just to maintain the isolation. Right, so.
Sure, sure.
I never understand this. How do they really expect to do that? They do this one. They'd never do it. Yeah.
So. So during a 2-year storm,
Yep.
to the plunge pool, so that's 2.5 inches of rain over 24 hours, you'd get about 8,500 cubic feet of water.
8,500 cubic feet.
Right.
That's not insignificant.
Well said.
But remember the size of the pool. You got a pretty good footprint there.
But pretty good means how much is going to get retained?
Well, throughout the storm, all that water is gonna leave that pool.
Right. It's flow through.
Right. We're really just trying to slow down that water.
So there is
From
no,
today onwards.
there's no retention capacity.
No,
I mean,
right,
one of the
so
ways you slow it down is by holding it.
Right.
And so what's
It's-
the holding capacity?
I mean, you've got about 1.5 feet times the square of a footprint of 20 feet, maybe 200 cubic feet, 300 cubic feet.
Right, I'm just asking for ballpark, so it's 200 or 300 cubic feet.
And you
get
said 8,300?
8,500.
Right. And
It's moving through there pretty fast. We used to call that a waterfall.
So
I don't know how you're going to hold that slope.
we're looking more like, yeah, it's 400 cubic feet cumulative. So, but remember, that's over the course of 24 hours.
Sorry.
That's over the course of 24 hours. That's not a plug of all that water coming right through in one instant. So the idea is just if we can prevent the erosion that's going on today through this plunge pool, then we've achieved our goal. That's what we're going for. And that rate of runoff is, for all intents and purposes, unchanged.
Are you directing more water there now? I mean, than is there now? I mean, you were talking
Yes,
before about
this-
Parking
It's
spaces.
600 square feet of pavement is going there that is not today.
So there's an additional 600 square feet.
Right.
Plus, you're redirecting a lot of water that went over the cliff previously by having the curbing in there.
Right. So everything that used to just rush down and find its own sort of gully
Going
is
that way.
going there.
Correct, as it should into the plunge pool.
Right.
Boy, and you don't have a plan for holding that slope. I mean, I understand the curbing aspect of it, but I'd like to see more information on what's on the downside, on the backside of the plunge pool as to how to hold that slope.
Can Can you talk a little bit about how you're holding the modifications to the slope at the edge of the parking? Because
So
it
we're
doesn't
gonna-
appear that there's, yeah.
We're going to do as little as possible. We're trying to do a full-depth reconstruction of the pavement, but in terms of, any sort of barriers back here beyond the curbing, we're going to try to do as little as possible. So we're hoping that full-depth buildup of the base layer and the pavement will be sufficient in those areas that are eroded. So granted, if there's a spot here and there where a gully's developed,
Right, you
we
roll
may,
it back in.
we may need to build that up a little bit in order to get that concrete, or the granite curbing in there.
So it's all
So-
granite curbing. Yep.
Right, so that'll be, you can set that in concrete.
Yep.
It's, in essence, it's a little mini retaining wall going along there, because you're setting it down 18 inches rather than just the 6 inches that you're seeing at the top. So we're hoping that's all we need to do, because obviously any further work down that slope is something we're trying to avoid.
Well, putting the curb in is gonna help stop the erosion. The question is whether or not the weight of the cars is just gonna push the whole thing through.
Right. Which, by fully reconstructing all this, we don't think that's going to happen. Basically, if it hasn't done that already in the pretty bad condition that it's in, doing it the right way, redoing it all, it shouldn't happen in the future.
So the edge of the parking, if I were to go out and look at it, the edge of the parking that is there now is going to be maintained. We're just gonna get a granite curb along the face of it. We're not moving that line forward or backward.
Correct.
Okay.
You'll have the edge of the pavement.
Right.
Now you're going to get curved. So you'll have 6 inches.
Right.
outside of it.
Outboard.
Right.
And you're saying that goes down an additional 18, so we're looking at a 24-inch curb.
Total 18.
Total 18,
So
so it's 12
1
down.
foot below,
Okay.
6-inch reveal.
Okay.
All right. I don't get a warm and fuzzy feeling about this, but it sounds like an improvement, but I'm just looking for the best possible resolution, since you're doing it anyway. Is the
Right.
pool big enough? I mean, would it help slow down? I'm concerned with the backside and just deteriorating, going down into the wetlands. I'd like to see something that would give me confidence that this flow, which you're actually directing into this riprap area, is going to be pretty extensive. And because of that, I still think it's an improvement, but nevertheless, can you help us out by giving us more information on the backside? What can you put there that'll hold that slope? And it might be something as simple as a wetland mix of plants. I don't know.
So the whole thing will be lined with geotextile fabric.
The whole slope? Are you
Two
talking about
layers.
the
Just the plunge pool.
just the plunge pool?
Plunge pool.
Right.
So that helps. That adds strength. We tried to keep it as small as possible because the bigger we make it, the further we're extending construction towards the
agree.
wetland.
Right.
So we're trying to maintain that balance of what's going to help, what's going to make it better, without just building a huge detention pond over here for essentially existing pavement in a condition that's already there today.
Do you have a sense of what the slope should look like? I'm not talking
No,
about
I
the
don't.
detention area, but I'm talking about the backside of it as
I
you
don't
go
know.
down the hill.
I don't know. Can you tell me what the elevation is between the current bottom of the bottom of the plunge pool and the edge of the wetland? Is that like a 10-foot drop? Because it wasn't phenomenal, but it was steep.
Just from standing down there, it's at least 2 of me. We're talking
12 to 15.
maybe
kind of?
15 feet. So you're at 99 right here. The last grade I'm seeing here is 83.
Okay, so 16.
So you're maybe as much as 20 feet, but it's not 40 feet.
It's not full, right. What I was wondering was, if you were to go deep with the plunge pool, basically think of it as a dry well and less of a plunge pool, would that give the water more opportunity to get in and therefore not be an erosion issue, because now you're basically dropping it to the elevation of the wetland and letting it go horizontal Or is that,
Carve this out to the elevation of the wetland?
well, not to the elevation, but take that, if you take that, let's imagine that's a dry well and you take that down 15 feet. You said we're looking at 19 or 20 feet, right? So that's 5 feet above the wetland. You drop that straight down, fill it with gravel. You have some retention on that. Are we gonna get any flow through? And then and hopefully what we've done there is gotten rid of any surface water, because now it goes to the bottom of the pool and migrates horizontally. Would that do anything for us in terms of getting rid of the flow over the erosion?
It certainly would. It would give you, the more stone you add there, the more retention you're gonna get. It's just it would become a feasibility and a cost issue. I think digging out that hole, something that deep on the side of that slope.
It would just cave in.
Right. I just
Okay.
picture that being difficult.
Okay, I'm just looking for a way to get rid of the flow over the top.
Can you split it, not going 15 feet, but instead of going 4 feet, can you go 8 feet? And I understand feasibility, but I just didn't know from an engineering perspective, that would obviously increase the holding capacity.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we're going down 4 feet from the pavement, plus another 2 feet for your section. So we're 6 feet down as is. And honestly, we're not even, in our calculations, we were being conservative, and we're just showing this top elevation. So we're getting
Right.
all that storage in the stone and in that whole sand layer beneath this. Whatever.
Yeah.
That's not even showing up in those volumes that I gave you guys.
Right.
So we will have a good amount of storage there. Going deeper, yeah, I mean, you could carve it out.
It's feasibility.
Yeah, I think it becomes a construction and feasibility and cost issue at the end of the day.
You understand our concern about the flow-through effect and the washout downhill. I mean, the volume of water we're talking about, and effectively, once you've filled up your retention capacity, it's pure flow-through. And because we said that there's effectively zero absorption.
Right.
So we fill the pond up, and then anything that comes in after that is just through the gravel and out the backside for the erosion that we have now.
Right. So if I saw huge rates of runoff coming out of this stone, I would be concerned. But seeing them pretty much on par with where they are today, I'm not concerned, because now you have that rate hitting a completely non-armored slope. It's just grass and soil. Instead of that, now it's going through a 6-inch stone kind of armored area.
But what's coming out the backside is the same volume that's going in on the front side.
Right.
And now we've taken that entire slope and I think it's a good thing, we just need to figure out how to control the flow. We've taken everything along that, 120-foot slope, and we've focused it down into a 30-foot area. So we've quadrupled the flow through in this one spot.
Right.
So that's gonna be an issue.
You're also slowing it through we're talking, it's a width of 20 feet that's now coming out through riprap stone. I mean, one solution might be what you mentioned, of getting grass along the back there, getting
Yeah,
a
something like
good
that.
planting. I think that's a,
Shrubs.
Right.
I think grass alone is not gonna do it.
Right, but something to our concern is stabilizing the soil,
Sure.
the slope.
yeah, I think between a good geotextile in there and some plantings and grass, that would be even more of an improvement.
I would like to see the plan for the back slope. I don't know if you would. I'm not trying to delay you. Do you have a construction schedule in place now? Scheduled for when?
Hoping to start, we've just finalized the contractor, and we were hoping to finish it by the end of October.
We don't meet until the 13th. And we don't have any site walks? We do.
We had a sidewalk planned this weekend.
We could have a sidewalk on Saturday.
Yeah.
I can't make it on Saturday.
Nor can I.
No?
I could get up there at another time, but not on Saturday. I'm wondering
Get up there another
about,
time as well.
Is only change the plantings?
Yeah.
Because then it could be contingent on you, he could send me the plans and we can
They can
vote.
go ahead with the pavement and we'll follow up with the
And
downhill.
it can be contingent on an approved plan by the commission. You could issue the order with a contingent that the plan has to be approved.
We could do that. We could do that, because we're meeting on the 13th, and I know you won't be done by then. So you're talking about the end of October completion? So we meet on the 13th, so can you get us a plan that fast?
By the 13th?
Yes.
Sure.
All right, well, we'd like it before the 13th.
Yeah.
But
just
what's
let me
our
know.
filing
Yeah.
date prior to the public hearing?
Okay.
Let me check. I believe it's-
Sequentially, is the intent to do all of the paving and the curbing before you do the plunge pool? Or would you excavate the plunge pool at the same time? I'm just wondering, what is the plunge pool and the planting that we're talking about, is that an end product, or is that something that is more at the front end?
We'd probably like to see something done here. Maybe it won't be the completed plunge pool, but once we put all this curb in, we're going to be directing more water to this spot. So I would, just shooting from the hip, I would probably want to see something there
Sooner than later? Yeah.
sooner than later, by the time this is all constructed.
Okay.
can I ask a question? Any reason why the plunge pool wasn't pulled in more to the curb line and extended further out in, I guess, what would be a southerly direction?
Back this way?
No.
No,
Easter,
E-
east.
that way.
Yeah, that's it. And that would, is there anything obstructing doing that? Because that would give you
More width.
less push on the backside
Right.
and greater volume capacity, along with the possibility of improved absorption into the earth. If I remember how that land is gradated, because as you move further, in whether it's in southeasterly direction, the slope is less articulated.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything back in here that would completely stop us from extending this out. Going this way, obviously, we'd be limiting the access, but
Yeah,
Then you take it off,
due east.
right, and then go
Yeah.
this way.
That's due east, yeah.
Do we st- Yeah, his, I'm sorry, there's not there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, what are you suggesting, that they make it wider?
Well, I'm asking the question, listening to the conversation, question about the capacity of the pool to begin with, concern about the backside. If we have this opportunity to move in another direction, you could have a larger pool, a better rate of absorption possibly, and less stress on the backside, along with more protection of the wetland.
Would that work?
See, moving this way.
No, I understand, but if the water's coming in from that point right there,
Yeah.
how far is it going to, will it go?
It's set by the height of the berm. So if the berm on the downhill side is level, that's a level spreader. Basically, you're feeding it anywhere along the length of it, it's gonna fill up and should theoretically flow consistently off the entire thing. So the longer you make it, the wider you've spread it out. That's like it.
Yeah, and the elevation of the
Gun Hill.
back then is more
Level
consistent
spreaders.
with the elevation of the parking lot too. It's closer
Hmm.
than a foot and a half, 2 feet difference.
so anything we do back here, the only question is where do you stop? Because anything going this way, we're just disturbing more area within the buffer zone.
Got it, but if
So-
they do that, I mean, these plans don't have, it's one thing to say we can approve a planting plan to hold the back slope and make that a condition. But if we're increasing the size of this, I think we'd have to see additional
Different
plans.
plans, I agree.
Which may be, you may be right, but it will cut into their construction plan if we hold it off until the 13th of October.
Well, that, where I was going with my comment about the sequencing was whether we could give them approval to proceed with the paving and the curbing and resolve the issues with the plunge pool and the slope. But based on what was said, they would want to at least rough out the plunge pool as part of the excavation for the.
Yeah, and on the construction side, what are you doing to prevent erosion and sedimentation during the construction?
Bales.
That's going to be, that's a steep slope there, and we always say, oh yeah, we'll put hay bales up, but that's, you've got, how long is the construction going to take? You're talking about a couple of
It can't
weeks?
take more than a month. We got to be done by the end of October. So once we start, maybe a month, 5, 6 weeks at most.
That's a long time to have that open with that kind of a slope. And we are pushing back towards the wetlands there. That area is
So
okay.
It will have silt fence and
Yeah.
typical erosion protection along there.
John?
Oh, yeah, I know, but I'm just thinking if that's open for 5 or 6 weeks, and we're gonna get some storms in there, that's quite a slope. Maybe we need like a double row
So
of.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
when I say 5 or 6 weeks, I'm also talking getting this
It's
whole
mo-
thing
it's
done.
moving, yeah,
So
no,
for
I
them to
understand.
get these spots and this curb in, that might be 2 days for them to pave that. So,
I understand, but we might just, to the extent that the project is gonna be open, we're talking about expanding the excavation of the plunge pool, we may wanna double up on your hay bales and silt fence.
sure.
Because it's a significant drop. I mean, it's not 40 feet, but it's
Right.
20 feet. It's
not
it's going down.
insignificant. Yeah,
So how about that? Is that something you can live with, doubling up on that? And how do you want to address Arthur's comment that, if you went a little bit eastward, you could increase the capacity of the plunge pool?
I guess how much capacity do we want to add?
Well, you're
Because
talking
I
about 400 feet versus 8,400 feet. Right?
Right.
The holding capacity is about 400 cubic feet.
Right. I mean, if you wanted to hold an entire storm from all the pavement that currently drains to this area,
No, it'd be monster.
You'd
We're
be
not
building
talking
a-
about that, right.
so I have this now that the calculations are showing is going to work versus a pond to collect everything. I've just got to find that spot in the middle.
Yeah, and it's
And I don't
probably
know
not,
exactly
it's
where
not
to
the
put
middle,
that.
it's closer to your end than it is to, full holding capacity. That would be like the
So I'm just
Superdome.
trying to think of it in terms of a condition. What would it be?
The problem is that you have a capacity of, let's say, 400, and you have no absorption, and once you hit that capacity, it's pure flow-through. So you have the capacity to handle small events, but if it rains and you actually get 8,500, you're actually only catching 400, and you have 8,100 that's flowing through on the downhill slope, the 15 or 20-foot downhill slope that we're talking about. So I don't know if there's a way to improve the absorption. I mean, I don't know how you do that. And increasing the capacity just delays, I mean, it gives us you can handle a larger storm before you get the full flow through.
Right.
So it would help in terms of minimizing the occurrences of flow through. But the 8,500 is a big number when we're only talking about 400. So even if you double the size of that, you're up to 800, and you're still talking about 8,500. And then you're into flow through again. So anything you could do to improve that would be beneficial, and it would minimize the occurrence of the full flow through. And then in addition to that, any planting we do on the downhill slope to minimize erosion.
And I'm not convinced that even a lot of planting on the downhill slope, that type of flow-through is going to eliminate erosion, serious erosion, it's just gonna delay it.
Yeah.
Well,
As I,
I
I'm
was
sorry.
not on that site walk. How much, like, light exposure? So it's north facing, right? I mean, is it?
It is north facing, and you walk through, there's a line of trees right beyond the top, the slope, the edge of the pavement, there's a line of trees. Once you get to the bottom of the slope, it opens up a little bit, and the trees are further apart, is my recollection.
I'm just thinking about what you could effectively plant there that will take and establish to effectively,
We'll take some of the invasives from
Yeah.
Stony Hill lots.
So-
That'll hold us.
Yeah.
They'd be happy to give them to us.
Yeah. So is there any way to improve the absorption? Because if the problem, as I see it, is that the holding capacity is gonna fill up, and then we have a pond,
right?
and if
It's
we
overflowing.
and it's overflowing, if we had any way to
Eroding.
improve the holding, to improve the absorption,
Percolation, right.
then we would actually, a normal storm, we'd actually have absorption at that point, so the 400 now becomes 600 or 800,
Right.
or 1,000, or, you know, or more, the greater we can improve the absorption. That's why I was thinking, do we go deep?
Deeper.
And does that give us-
Sand or something?
Yeah, do we
or-
go deeper and find out that we're into something else that allows that absorption to happen?
What do you hit? You do just hit clay, or, I mean, do you just hit?
It's showing D-soils, so it, like a tight kind of till.
Mm.
I mean, honestly, I think the
If you
deeper you go, you're gonna
deeper
get.
and put more sand and gravel, maybe you are able to improve the.
But it's,
absorption.
until we can get to a point where we have better absorption, we're only creating capacity
Right, right.
to the point of flow through.
Yeah. And that's why I was. looking
Anything,
Part of why I was looking toward the east, because you get, I think if I'm looking at that correctly, the greater opportunity for more absorption in an easterly direction.
Why don't we do this?
You're getting-
It looks like, you know, we're just talking concepts here. Could you come up with a plan for us, either by going deeper or wider, or a combination of those, and double the capacity from 400 to 800, and come back to us with like a planting plan on the backside that will hold the slope? I would be more comfortable than approving what's shown there, because I call it a waterfall, and I know it's a 24-hour time, so it's not literally that, but it seems like there are going to be some anticipatable, foreseeable storms that are going to create a lot of erosion, and it is better with your plan, but if we could maximize the benefit and still make it feasible, I'd feel more comfortable. Do you think you could come up with a plan to get it? However, use your own imagination, engineering imagination, and just get it from 400 to 800 and give us a planning plan.
Sure.
Would you feel more comfortable with that? I'm not sure that's something that we can vote on tonight and say contingent upon that. I actually think that's going to require getting better plans, but I don't mind having an extra meeting. I don't want to slow you down, and there may be a way that we can do both. We can get a better plan and not slow you down.
okay.
It's okay by me.
Can I make just one other idea? Because we know we're gonna get flow through, what if we take riprap, give ourselves a swale, put riprap in it, run it to the bottom of the slope? The backside of that, we know it's gonna flow through, we know it's gonna go. What if we give it a path that won't erode?
So rip wrap the backside of the slope.
Riprap the backslide all the way from the plunge pool to the bottom of the slope?
I
How do you
think in
keep
that-
the oil and the crud
Yeah,
that's
there's no,
coming
Oh,
off
right,
of
right,
the?
so we have no
off of
filtration.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
right, and it's coming up the
It's all
parking
going
lot.
straight, you've got a beeline to the wetland
Okay,
now.
forget that. I'm just trying, okay, I'm throwing out ideas. Okay, sorry.
No, it's fine. We'd then be doing work
It's a good idea
Right
if
up to
you
the edge
could
of the
find
wetland.
some way to,
within the
Hold back.
25-foot buffer. And
Oh, for sure, and that would, you mean the riprap all the way down? Oh, I agree with that, and it wouldn't do anything to the contaminants, so let's go back to Plan A.
Yeah.
Can we meet, how fast could you do something like that, to come up with an 800 cubic foot capacity, to slow it down that much, and then give us a planning plan? Because how about a week from Saturday? And we could do a site walk, and that's a public meeting, so we can vote on the
I'm
site.
still not here. Well, Judith might be back. I have got to be out of town on
A
the
week
20th,
from
the
Saturday.
26th, yeah.
The 19th to 26th.
Can we meet?
After
in the
that,
af-
I'm good.
Can we meet during the week for a site walk? It's only the one
Yeah.
site.
It's good for me.
I think so.
This week, I'm going 22nd to the 28th.
When you say that, what do you mean? First thing in the morning, 7?
Yeah, I'd rather do it in the morning.
If we're gonna do it during the week, like 7 o'clock? Is
On
that-
what day?
That-
7:30?
This-
No. And bring your own coffee.
Well, let's go back. Let's say we do it during the week in the morning. How much time do you need to calculate or recalculate the capacity?
For a plan to double the capacity and show some plantings, it's today Tuesday. A week from today, I could have that to you.
Okay. So if we had it in advance, and that's a week from today is, what's the,
22nd.
that's the 22nd. So we could do Thursday, the 20
4th?
at 7:30?
Okay.
Is that, we haven't even asked for a butters comments yet, so this is still concept.
That's enough notification time, Susan? The public hearing? should-
Yes, yes.
Right.
So
You just have
we
to-
would try Thursday.
So I'm gone. You guys need to make sure that Judith can do it. I'm gone the 22nd of September to the 28th. Is that right? The 22nd? Yeah, I fly out on the 22nd and come back the evening of the 28th.
Then why don't we just do it on Saturday?
The 29th,
But now we're
20.
back into,
which Saturday?
Not this Saturday, but the following Saturday.
she won't be here, that's the 26th.
Well,
I won't-
she's not gonna be here for the
Yeah.
other one
Oh,
anyways,
yeah.
so.
I thought
agree.
after.
You can't make it either.
Would any earlier days next week work? I mean, I could,
Rush it.
if I had to scramble, I could, if Monday or Tuesday next week worked for you guys, I could get it to you sooner. I could get it to you by the end of this week.
I
Okay.
could do Monday. I'm almost positive I could do Monday.
That's the 21st.
Right.
It's like 7 a.m. on Tuesday.
What time? When do you leave, the 22nd?
The 22nd at 7
Right.
a.m. So I'm getting up early one day. Why not get up early the
Just
next
consider it practice.
Oh, you know what? I'm not going to be here Monday, the 21st.
Okay.
I'll be back Monday night. I'm gone Sunday.
So tentatively say it's the following Saturday, the 26th, right? And
I'm
confirm that
still
with
gone.
Judith.
Yeah, if Judith can make it, you guys
Well,
are
if
good.
Judith can make the 22nd, do you want to do it then, that Tuesday?
Yeah,
And
I'm
during the
open
morning?
to any of that.
Yep, I could do either one. Can you make, as long as we get enough time for notice of the public meeting?
Yeah, I can post it tomorrow.
Yeah, but we don't know which one it is, because if Judith can't make it, we won't have a quorum.
Can we call Judith tonight?
No, we only need 48 hours to post a public meeting.
Okay. So it's either the 22nd or the following Saturday? You want to do the following Saturday, the 26th? What is it?
The
Yeah, it's the
26th.
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 Saturday's the 26th.
At 8 a.m.
At 8 a.m. All right. Let's try for that. But now, before we lock that in, we haven't even asked for comments or questions from abutters or members of the public. Anybody would like to ask questions? Hearing none. Do you have a question?
Question?
Is this going to be postponed until next week of decision?
Yes, we need additional plans. Because I don't think the consent, I'm just kind of guessing at this, but there's no consensus that these plans are sufficient to prevent an unrestrained runoff into the wetlands.
Okay. Because everything that we're talking about pertains to the retention, the plunge pool, and the downhill slope, can we pull the trigger for them to go ahead with the paving?
I don't think so, based on what you said, Matt, because I thought that once they start the excavation, they're going to dig down and repack the surface, and at the same time they're doing the excavation, they're going to do the plunge pool excavation. So it sounds like one
One excavation.
excavation. And I think that you can still make your construction plan, and we're still meeting if September 26th, and we can take care of it on that date. Be ready to go.
Sorry, the 26th?
Saturday, the 26th?
Buys you more time to do a
Well,
great
either
plan.
the 22nd or the 26th.
Is that okay? I know you can't make it, you know, we'll think of something. We'll get Judith, we'll kidnap her or something. Get her out there, all right? All right? Any other comments? Are you okay with that?
I'm not sure what I'm okay with.
Okay. Well, what we're doing is we're asking for it. Could you identify yourself for the record?
Yes, I'm in a butter, I live on Holmes Lane, and I've been in a butter for 40 years. And I do have some information that might be constructive.
Well,
I'm
come forward, please.
a little horrified as I listen to this discussion about the water issue.
Come forward, because the tape recorder needs to hear you.
Because I know that after Winter Valley was constructed, the properties on Holmes Lane had substantial water issues.
Can you use the microphone, please? And actually identify yourself, please?
Okay. My name is Susan Flukes, and I'm in a butter. I live on Holmes Lane, and I've lived there for 40 years. And after Winter Valley during the construction of Winter Valley, the properties on Holmes Lane virtually became a sponge pool. We all had to install sump pumps, and I even had to install a French drain because of the difference in drainage that was created from what was done on that property. So that I find this discussion about the water issue extremely interesting and a little horrifying when I know what my experience and my neighbors' experiences have been when you start diverting water from an adjacent property.
But you're on the other side. This water is
Oh,
going away from you.
I understand that, but there are properties on all sides of this, and it doesn't seem to be clear. In other words, we had hydraulic studies at that time, and still we had water problems. So it is an issue. The other issue that concerns me is when I listen to all the talk about the debris and the dumping that was done. We live on the other side, I know, and there is dumping on the other side against the fence with the property that abuts Winter Valley. And whenever I have called about trees that are hanging over and other debris, there is absolutely no response. I have had to pay, and my neighbors have had to pay, a considerable amount of money to have debris and trees and limbs that are hanging over onto our property from Winter Valley removed, because there is not a lot of cooperation from Winter Valley in doing what they agreed to do when that was initially constructed. So those are two issues that are of concern to me. And the third question I have for you is, are you aware that there is a grant of perpetual conservation restriction that was given by Winter Valley to the town and supposed to be administered by the Conservation Commission about that property, which severely restricts what they can do on that property with respect to conservation? Are you aware of that?
To be honest with you, I was not, but we have jurisdiction anyway. So whether or not it was a conservation restriction in our favor, which does not have to be a resource area, anybody can give uplands to us. But because we're in a wetland area or a resource area, we have our jurisdiction dependent upon that.
Right, but it pretty much restricts them from doing, I think, some of the things I'm hearing here.
Well, this is an improvement because the parking lot is not expanding. They're just repairing it. And at the same
But
time
they
that
are
they're
also adding parking spaces,
They are.
which they are not allowed to do according to this conservation restriction that they granted to the town through the Conservation Commission and to all the abutters. So I'm kind of horrified to hear this. The last time they expanded parking, we weren't notified because there wasn't this wetlands issue. But now there is, and so I'm just concerned about that, and why that restriction that they granted in the 80s seems to be being ignored.
Fair question. Yeah,
And I would just ask that you try and get a copy of that agreement and see if it comports.
Sure, and that's a
With
fair
what's-
request as well.
Do you have a copy?
I don't with me, no.
No, do you have one that's available to you?
I can look, yes.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Can you give your information to Kathy so that we can try to get a copy?
Pull a
if-
copy of it.
Right.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, yeah, those are good comments. Is there a response from Winter Valley?
We have worked with Mrs. Fuchs over the years, removing debris, broken trees. Our landscaper, we've planted trees. We've done the best we could, and I haven't heard from her in a few years now. So I didn't know that she has some complaints. As
I
far
welcome you
as,
to look at the back of my property between me and Winter Valley. You will see
Okay.
a mess.
All right, but let her finish, okay? We need to have every person have a full opportunity to speak.
I also don't know anything about the conservation plan, so, as far as I know, we know nothing about it as far as the staff that's there now as to what took place in 1980. So I don't know.
What is the number of additional parking spaces overall?
Four.
4 here.
Increase, you mean?
Yes, the increase, that's what I was talking about. But the footprint, is the outside footprint, is that changing?
The outside footprint, no. These are inner,
If you could point those out?
these spaces here are being added. It's about 650 square feet of pavement.
They're on the grass.
No, I understand that. That was in response to a question, because it's an area that's already developed. They're not expanding into land that has not, that they haven't been in before. They're already there. But I'd be very interested in reading the terms and conditions of the conservation grant. I think that's a fair point. We'll make it up with Kathy, if you could see if you could run that to ground. Bill Clark may be able to
Okay.
help you find that.
I know back in, when they built Building 5, back in 1990, I think they agreed not to do any more building for another 25 years, or I believe, but that's the only thing I had ever heard.
Okay. All right, thank you. So, any other comments, questions from the commissioners? We've actually spent a long time on this
Sorry.
more than I expected.
Yeah.
Could you just tell me when the next meeting is?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Because when we were talking about a site walk on Saturday morning at 8 a.m., September 26th, that's a public meeting, and we'll be able to have full discussion. We'll have a portable tape recorder, so we'll have a record, and we'll be able to take a vote at that time. All right, and I don't know, Matt, how soon you can get us the materials, the enhanced capacity of the plunge pool and the plantings on the backside. That would be very helpful to us.
Yeah, I'll get it to you as soon as I can, hopefully within the next few days.
Oh, great, that'd be good.
The 22nd was the alternate time. Did that get rejected? I mean, the 22nd was,
Yeah, that's right, no, that's right.
we might be meeting on the morning of the 22nd, depending upon the availability of one of the commissioner members.
You mean that's when the public meeting would be?
We're not sure if it's on the 26th at 8 o'clock or on the 22nd at 7:30, depending on her availability.
But you'll send a notice?
Kathy,
I can make a phone call, but there won't be like a notice like on butters, just to the butters. Once the initial notice goes out, then
I know
it's,
some of the abutters haven't gotten notices at all. I don't know why.
Well, you don't get a notice after the first notice, but I think, didn't we collect all the green cards
I
on
did
this one?
tonight. They're in the folder.
So the green cards are here, those are the return receipt requests, those all came back. But it only gives notice of the first meeting, and then you have to kind of follow along, because many of these hearings get continued from month to month. So if you're not following it, if you don't show up at one meeting, you have to watch the public notification. But it's on the website, the miltontown.org, and that'll tell you when it is. So it'll either be the 22nd or the 26th. But if you could stay in touch with Kathy at the DPW office, she'll tell you.
Okay,
And
Right.
I should know by Thursday. I should know by Thursday.
okay, Kathy.
Oh, that's
With
great.
Judith.
All right, thank you. So with, oh, no, there's something else, and you need to know whether or not, the applicant has made a request to reduce the fee because it's a nonprofit. And I indicated to her that in the past, we have done that on occasion, not every time, because we have a lot of not-for-profits. And I know it gets into the whole pilot program, payment in lieu of taxes, for some of the schools. But we just did that recently because the Eustis Estate had asked for a reduction. They have 90 acres, and it's done, the fee structure is done on the basis of acreage. So they came in with a, what, $9,400 fee, and they asked for mercy. So we actually considered, we had a discussion, and we did reduce it. And what I've got in my hand is the conservation filing fee. It's a schedule it's published. It's also part of the town website. But for notice of intent, if you're less than 2 acres, it's a $200 filing fee. If it's 2 or more acres, but not more than 10, it's $200 plus $100 for each acre over 2. And if you're 10 or more acres, it's $1,000 plus $100 for each acre over 10. So I guess, how did you calculate yours? You came in at about 2,500?
Yeah, I think it was 2490 something.
Yeah, I have the check here, she just submitted.
Okay.
We did pay it, and Kathy held it, but, we would just want, I mean, we're talking about a small area, we're not talking about the property as a whole.
Right.
And so the area that is concerning the wetlands or the conservation committee is a small area, and we were hoping that you could, we are a nonprofit where our monies are paid by HUD on the most part, so we're just wondering if you could give us the consideration and drop the fee. We're, like I said, we will, we are going to look into I don't know what you call them, to contain the dumpsters so that we won't have the problem continuing. And, that excess money that we're paying could help offset that charge.
Understood. So translating the 2,400 into acreage, what's the acreage?
25 total.
25 total acres. So if I'm amenable to giving some consideration. We can't be too cavalier because the monies don't go to us, they go to the town. And I am very sympathetic to Winter Valley. Not so much HUD,
Well,
not as much.
but I mean, it's Winter Valley, and we do pay taxes, and
So and we talked about this earlier here. Does anybody have a suggestion as to how to formulate something? Because we have to be careful about setting a precedent that is inconsistent with other actions that we've taken. And I'm thinking of the Eustis Estate as being a good example. I think there was an appropriate reduction from 9,000 to 2,000. And maybe there's something in here we could, if it were 10 acres, it would be $1,000. Does anybody have a sense of how we can drop it, or should we drop it from the 2,500 that they paid to something less than that? Cut it in half or something of that nature? Because that would be, if we went to the 10 acre, it would be $1,000. And this area is probably an acre, so maybe 1,100 or something of that nature. I'm just
Sure.
making this up as I'm going along. But we want to be somewhat uniform with what we did with the Eustis Estate. Any thoughts on how to come up with a figure that's fair and reasonable?
We had a little discussion.
Right, and the question became, if there was a large entity or for-profit entity in the wings, if there was an option, then they would not be entitled to some sort of reduction. So I don't know how does this situation compare?
You're 100% nonprofit.
Is that the case? So that would not
Wouldn't
affect
come into
this
play.
particular, but I still think in the future, we probably ought to address that eventuality.
Address what? That if.
In other words,
Fee
if,
structure.
yeah, if it's nonprofit, but there is a for-profit arm or a for-profit entity
Developer, yeah.
has, yeah, a developer has an option or has some interest in it, then that property would not qualify for a
Reduction.
reduction.
That's true.
Michael was concerned about a
Loopholes.
for-profit taking advantage of the ability to get a lower rate under a not-for-profit.
So I agree that giving them a reduction, it's really just coming up with what do you think the basis is, and what you just said about 10 acres, $1,000 plus 100, plus the extra 100. I feel like that seems appropriate.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
All right. Any comments from the public, abutters or otherwise? Motion for $1,100? Second?
Second?
In favor? All right. You just went from 2,500 to 1,100. Okay, all right, good, thanks. I don't want to steal that from Kathy.
Yeah.
All right, so with the assent, which I believe we have the assent of the applicant, we will continue this until either Tuesday morning, September 22nd at 7:30 a.m., and we'll meet right at the parking lot, or Saturday, September 26th at 8 a.m., meet at the same place. And that'll be posted on the town website, and for Ms. Fuchs, you can talk to Kathy, and you'll get special notice. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
In terms of that plan, is that specific doubling of the capacity and adding the wetland planting? That's the,
Or whatever is good to hold the downside slope. And it might be, you might need a geotech, netting, something. I don't know what's going to hold it.
okay.
And then doubling up the hay bales. The concern about the erosion during period of construction.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, abbreviated notice of intent, 41 Pleasant Street. Paul, is that you?
Good evening, my name is Paul Sullivan. I'm here on behalf of Celebrate Realty LLC regarding a abbreviated notice of intent that was filed regarding an proposed easement that intersects the outer rim of the 100-foot no disturb for the vernal pool. It's up off of, in the back of 41 Pleasant Street. And just to go back to the history of the utility easement that we're proposing, we had a meeting with John Thompson, the town engineer, and Joe Lynch, the DPW director. And Mr. Lynch requested that we consider an easement, utility easement, and bring the water main out to the edge of the town property where the proposed animal shelter's going to be built, I guess, which is out here in this corner right here. And he also requested that we add a hydrant out here as well, which the applicant has agreed to. So this is the end of a cul-de-sac. It's a 8-lot cul-de-sac that runs out to Pleasant Street. It involves two properties, 31 Pleasant Street and 33 Pleasant Street and 41 Pleasant Street. It's a definitive plan was filed today for the subdivision with the planning board. And so we are here to discuss with the commission the idea of having a 15-foot wide utility easement through the outer rim of the 100-foot no disturb. The 100-foot area has been all staked out, and the easement has been staked out. So if you walk the site, you could see clearly where it is. There's about 3 trees on the outer perimeter of it, one on the front portion near the cul-de-sac, and then there's 2 on the outer rim out here that may or may not have to come down. I don't believe these trees are in the best of shape, or I'm not sure what the species are.
How big?
I think it might say on the plan, I'm not sure, but those are smaller trees. The one closest to the cul-de-sac was the largest of the 3. And looks like it says this one's 8-inch diameter, and this one is 15-inch. I can't read the size of the one that's there. There's some markings over it. It also shows the silt fence and hay bales that would be installed at the perimeter of the 100-foot no disturb, and then inside where the utility easement would go as well, which would be temporary. We're considering proposing a split rail fence to be at the 100-foot circle. We'd seen one that was placed up on Woodland Road. I believe there was a house that was recently built up there and had, I think it was a 2-acre lot and had several vernal pools on the property, I believe.
That first one in on the right?
Yes, yeah, it's just before the Stonebridge access to where the new homes were built a few years ago. And it just became occupied, I think, the new home. So we wanted to get some feedback from the commission on their thoughts of this, and also what might be appropriate to mark the 100-foot buffer where it's on this property.
Is this a sidewalk issue? Anybody interested in the sidewalk part? That's a question, I'm not pushing. It's a real question. You care?
I think it is, but
Yeah, I'd like to walk it. I mean, I can't do it in the next 2 weekends, but
Yeah, I mean, it,
concerned about vernal pools, and it'd be nice to take a look.
one of the problems, and I apologize because I should have had it here with me tonight, but I don't have the bylaw. Because we have a provision in the 25-foot non-disturbance for an override of that. But the vernal pool is separate. It's a separate section. And I don't know what it says.
I believe it says you have the authority to reduce that 100-foot. The commission does, yes.
Yeah, I assumed that it did, but I just don't have the verbiage in front of me.
Yeah, it does specifically say that.
Because, yeah, I think the point is that you'd have to find that there's no significant adverse impact.
Sure,
And you're burying a pipe and then you're going to replant it.
yes.
right.
So I don't think it's going to be much
Yeah,
of a...
I'm not opposed to the proposal, but I think we should do a sidewalk.
I do too, because I don't know whether or not there's any way around, like if there's some, champion tree in the way. And I know you just said 8, 15-inch caliper, but I would like to eyeball it to see if there is, some better alternative.
Yeah, one thing that seems to have happened, and I think you'll see it when you get out there, because the easement's clearly staked out now, and so is in the 100-foot in that area, is that apparently it looks like that at one time equipment was brought through here. It was quite a while ago, a long time ago, because it's pretty much cleared out. It just worked out that way, but where we propose the easement, there's very few trees or any growth there. It's pretty open. It's one of the most open areas of the entire area. And the other thing is, the vernal pool is right here. This area here is upland of the pool.
Right.
So there's a mound. It's pretty good protection. Then it drops back down again where the easement is.
Right.
So the pool's, well protected because of the mound that's here, the existing mound.
I think it would be better, and if, because of work responsibilities, Tuesday at 7:30, it's easy enough to get to the Winter Valley, but it would be, it might be more difficult to get up there at, 8 o'clock or 8:30, especially when you're supposed to be at work. So if you could convince Judith to go on the Saturday, we could just go right over there and take a look at it.
And how would you like to get in from there?
You can go right into the 41 Pleasant Street
41
entrance.
Pleasant?
Yeah, you just pull right to the back. It's pretty, there's a path there, because we did some soil tests that you could get right to the easement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you prefer to do that?
What's that?
You'd rather do that on the weekend than
Yes,
with fence and 2 buses?
absolutely.
Right.
Right.
So what
Oh,
time?
for sure, because is that one way now, or is that a proposal? That was a proposal to make?
Yeah, it's,
Is
the
it one way
neighbors,
now?
a lot of the neighbors that we met with would like to have seen that end of Pleasant Street become a one-way.
But right now, it's two-way, is it
It's
still?
It's one way, but from Randolph Avenue.
Right.
Yeah, they want to actually make it one way the other direction.
Really?
And they wanted to block it right at the end of Bent's. So Bent's would have almost its
A dead end.
Suck themselves, yeah. So a lot of the neighbors suggested that, has been discussed at the planning board. But when the applicant's not proposing that. That's done.
What time?
Well, if we go up, 8:15 or 8 o'clock, it's not gonna, oh, I'm sorry. If we do it, we're at 8 o'clock at
Winter
Winter
Valley.
Winter Valley.
Yep.
I don't know, 8:30? We're not gonna be long at Winter Valley.
No,
We've been there.
I agree, yeah.
Should we say 9?
No, we're not gonna be there for an hour. An hour?
I thought we were starting at 7.
No.
Now, that was on a Tuesday.
How about
Getting up at
8:30, but we'll call it, Eastern Conservation Time, so we might be 15
Okay.
minutes late. All
Okay.
right, does that make sense?
That's fine, sure.
Okay, so we'll try to do it the 22nd. If there's a problem, would you stay in touch with Kathy
So we're
on
gonna,
that day?
we're
No,
gonna
the 26th is a Saturday.
I'm sorry, 26th. You're correct, I'm sorry.
approximately 8:30 on the
Right.
26th and Saturday. Yeah,
Roughly means later than.
I'm an optimist. Come on.
No, that's our just standard conservation speak.
All right, that's good.
that works good.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is request for modification, determination of applicability, 30 Curtis Road. What is that?
Unquity.
Unquity
That
House.
the overflow storage tank backflow for a couple of years ago, they got swamped out by septic coming from Blue Hills Ave.
Right.
So they're putting backflow preventers and a storage tank in. And they couldn't put it where they wanted to put it. I can't remember why. And there's a new proposed plan which shifts it still within within the parking area. It's not closer to the river, and it's not within a lawn area.
When we first issued this, when was that?
This is the river.
Yeah.
It was last July.
July of
14.
14?
Where does time go? It seems like yesterday.
I'm sorry, August 1st, 2014.
Can you vote on this?
Sure, why not?
Well, can you tell us, can you just point out where the change
So
is?
this is that's the old plan. This is the new plan. Basically, I can't remember why they can't put it in that location, but they can't put it in that location, and they've proposed to move it to this location, which is on the same path, pretty much the same path that they had before. So that was coming out of the building. They were trying to put it in a paving area that's here, and then extend the pipe out to Blue Hills Parkway. They couldn't put it there for some reason, Now they're putting it in a along the similar path, but this is in a, that's a parking area now. So they're requesting that it's a minor modification. And I'm sorry, I can't remember why they couldn't.
Was it gravel they hit?
What?
Did they hit gravel?
That shouldn't have stopped them.
Or ground or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't recall.
So this letter is 8/1/14, is that right? As opposed to 8/1/15, is that right?
No, this is the April 15th. Oh, wait, determine, rather than the approved determine, yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did think I had forgotten.
Was it really 8? So that'd be August, right?
Right.
Yep.
Looks okay to me. Anybody, I mean, if it's parking area,
It is. It's within an existing paved parking area. And it's along the same line that they had before, so it's, it is, yeah, it doesn't seem.
Seems fine to me.
Arthur, anything? It's still the, what is it, 18,000 gallon?
18,000 gallons.
Same size tank?
I believe, yep. I think so. It's purely a reposition due to some problem they had with the other location.
Well, they cite in the letter the subsurface explorations,
Okay.
so that ties in somewhat with Kathy's point. Maybe there's
Yeah.
clay or
Ledge. or-
ledge or whatever, something that doesn't make it appropriate.
All right, so the only vote would be whether or not this is, I don't think there's anybody here. I'd ask the public for a comment, but there's nobody sitting there, so. It appears that this would be a minor modification that would not require a filing of a new notice of intent. And if it's on a paved area,
Right.
it really is very minor. And the whole project is a good idea. So if there are no other questions, anybody move to
So
approve this
moved.
as a minor modification? But the plans which we've now received, we'd have to change it in the order of conditions attached to the new plan with the new location. Motion? Second? In favor? Done. All right, thank you. That's good. And that
You
is...
can go home tonight.
You can go home tonight.
Yeah, I can go home tonight.
Any additional business?
Yes. 2, Kathy, do you have the paper that I sent to you and John about positions of vacancies?
Oh, right. That was nice.
I sent John you an email and Kathy an
Yes.
email. You got a copy of it too? Yeah.
I think I forwarded in an email to the membership.
Yeah, you did.
Just to get an idea of, because we talked earlier about the backgrounds diversification and getting it posted, we can get it into, it's on the town website, into the local Times, and see if we can get some people with the qualifications.
Do you have it?
I don't have it with me.
I mean, it was perfect.
Yeah,
Kathy?
no, I thought it was fine too.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay with you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was basically broad ranged, and then right at the end, you said preferably we would like to have hydrology, the botany, and
Okay with you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, definitely.
So can we go forward and,
I just have to check with the selectmen, with human, HR, Michael Blue, just to find out whether it's be sent to them.
yeah, because they make the
Normal
appointment.
standard, just if they want to approve the wording of it.
Great. The other I had was the matter of the property at Gulliver Creek, 5, seems to be down there all the time, what,
Prokop.
Hillcroft Road. and what we have as the next step there, because that's really a badly eroding situation with the way the culverts
Yeah,
come
but didn't
out.
we get something today? Or recently?
I think you got my package
Oh,
with
this
the
is,
emails.
okay, yeah, I just read it to them.
But I did reach out to Kevin Hollenbeck and Robert Lowell,
DEP?
DCR. Sent them Ian's comments and Tom Palmer's, and plus the film of the water coming out of the
Right.
culverts. And I have not heard back from them, but I did speak to him, and
In looking at that, the way in which they added, once they did the construction for the drainage in the Southeast Expressway, that's cited in here, the abutments don't allow for the flow to come out and get diverted down into the
Right, they
marsh.
just go right across.
Right, and it goes cross currents. So it comes out of there, that's the largest culvert. It comes
Right.
out of there with tremendous force, it's hitting what's coming out of the culverts from Uncudy, and it's, just pushes the whole thing up against that cliff, so it's essentially poorly designed.
It is, but it might be,
It's not that it can't be remediated.
right, I was just thinking of, you know, is it Sandy Will that has that side of, I'm not suggesting that he donate anything to the town, but I'm sure he could point us out, because remember when the Conservation Commission approved the dock, the pier that goes out into the river for Sandy Will? I mean, he used, you know, great big blocks of granite
Granite.
from the quarries. Oh, I don't know where they came from, but I should think just a big block of granite like that would be sufficient to stop the flow.
Yeah, but we talked about, I mean, theoretically, we have access to the large boulders at Gun Hill, right?
Oh, that's true, too, yeah.
So if we just, yes,
you keep saying we, but it's a DCR property.
I know, but I
So-
say we, but we need to come up with if they have we know a source of boulders.
And they're trying to get rid of
And
them.
they're trying to get rid of them, and we know a problem that can be solved, so if we can get everyone to talk the same language, we might be able to get some of them relocated.
DCR is on the other side. This is the property that is on 5 Hillcroft.
No, 5 Hercroft abuts
Abuts,
DCR's
right.
land. So
They have
maybe-
a-
DCR's on
easement.
both sides of Gulliver Street.
They do have a,
Both,
on
I
both
believe it's
sides.
both sides. Right.
Not
It's
down
not,
the-
it's not much land.
Not
but
down the middle, huh? Where it usually goes.
it's true.
So I'm just saying, if we know of a source of boulders, we know someplace we could use them, if we can get DCR to agree, then maybe we could figure out how to get them.
Midnight Express.
Yeah, Midnight Express, well, but that's a big truck, right? That's not like someone's pickup.
You gotta get your
That's
riprap wish
the
after
problem,
all,
how
don't
do you
you?
get DCR on board?
So
So I've reached
thus
out-
far, there was no response initially?
Well, the homeowner said he's reached out to them, and I reached out on Monday and spoke with Kevin, and he said that, to send them the information from Ian Cook and from Tom Palmer. I have not heard back.
All right. And what about contacting Brian Joyce or Walter Timilty?
I thought we should probably start with DCR, find out what their solution to
Oh,
the
I-
problem might be before.
Oh, I agree.
Oh.
I agree wholeheartedly. I just didn't know, I'm looking at this, and this says August 31st. But when did you talk to Kevin?
I talked to Kevin either, today's Tuesday, maybe last Thursday, not.
Oh,
it was
okay,
Monday,
that's
Monday.
not much time.
Right, okay. I forget when I talked to him.
I just didn't know if it had been a couple of weeks with no response.
No. It was
Not
just
yet.
trying to get.
All right.
It's just, I think the homeowner at 5 Hercroft
Sorry,
has
we said.
reached out before and did not get any response back.
Okay. All right, well, we can await a response, and then if we have at our site walk either the 22nd or the 26th, then we can figure out what the next step is to see if we can get some response.
Okay,
It
good.
seems like a relatively easy fix, but something that should be fixed. Makes good sense.
Okay.
All right, is that good, Arthur?
That's fine, perfect.
Any other new business? Hearing none, motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor? Aye, adjourn. Thank you.